What is going on, everybody? What is going on? The Catch Fam, my name is John Dawson, and in today's video, we will be breaking down the 7 best waiver wire additions as we move into week 5 of the 2023 fantasy football season. If you guys are new to the channel, this is all we do here all year round: free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, be sure to subscribe on the way in. But more importantly, please get in the comment section down below anything you guys need moving into week 5 of the 2023 fantasy football season. Let me know, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into today's video. Number 1 overall, we've got Jaleel McLaughlin, the running back for the Denver Broncos, who apparently is going to be getting the most touches now that Javonte Williams is suffering from a hip injury. So obviously Samaje Perine has some value at the moment as well. Will kind of be in that pass catching role. But honestly, he hasn't seen more than 4 targets through the first 4 games of the season. And McLaughlin's had 3 targets in week 4 against Chicago. And he added 32 total receiving yards and a touchdown off of those 3 receptions, as well as 72 rushing yards off of 7 rushing attempts, which brought him to 10.2 yards per carry. Gets the Jets in week 5. It's not the best matchup. It's not the worst matchup, but we just saw Isaiah Pacheco run all over this Jets defense. I think McLaughlin, especially with as many injuries that we have seen to the running back position so far this year, he's an absolute waiver wire must add moving into the week. Like I said, Perine maybe sees a little bit more involvement in next week's game plan, but we absolutely need to be picking up any running back who has an opportunity to be a workhorse running back, even if it's just for 1 to 3 weeks, whatever it may be. It doesn't look like Javonte Williams is going to miss a ton of time, but for now, McLaughlin, who's 2% rostered according to the Sleeper app, needs to be added moving into week 5. All right, next on the list, we're going to go with Michael Wilson, wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, sitting at just 6% rostered. This is a player that throughout the offseason in our dynasty conversations got brought up a lot, but we've seen the progression from week 1 to week 4, and he definitely has value in redraft formats. 3.9 points in week 1, 8.6 in week 2, 10.6 in week 3, 26.6 against San Francisco in week 4. And I mean, Rondell Moore, 2 targets, 0 fantasy points after having 16 fantasy points against Dallas in week 3. It's really looking like Michael Wilson is going to potentially replace Rondell Moore's role on this team. And I mean, this Cardinals offense is nothing to sneeze at. They are competitive. They have a fire underneath them. Josh Dobbs, we might talk about in a second, looks pretty good. I mean, this is a team that has some fight in them. They're not going to give up. This offense. They might not be going out and winning football games all the time, but they are going to try and win football games. They get Cincinnati in week 5. A little bit of a steep matchup, but nonetheless, we need to look at these Cardinals players and start giving them a little bit of respect. And Michael Wilson has all the tangibles to be a steady wide receiver in the NFL. A big game for him in week 4. I think he's going to have plenty more moving into the rest of the season. He is an absolute must add as we approach week 5. All right, usually I don't talk about players on this video for the week if they are rostered in more than 50% of the league, but we need to have a quick conversation about Jamison Williams, who's rostered in 53% of leagues according to the Sleeper app. Obviously, he's been reinstated. His suspension from the NFL has been shortened from 6 games to 4 games, and he will be playing in week 5 against the Carolina Panthers. A little bit of a steep matchup, but hey, this Lions offense has proven that they are for real, that they can throw the football. Yeah, this makes me a little bit worried about one of our early waiver wire additions on the season, Josh Reynolds. But honestly, Jamison Williams, if he's available in your league, you need to go check right now and you need to pick him up because this offense has been consistent enough throughout the year. I mean, we know Dan Campbell wants to run the football. I get it, but Jamison Williams, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be taking the top off of opposing defenses. He's going to bring the safety up. I mean, this is going to open up so much more for this offense. So maybe Josh Reynolds will be okay, but nonetheless, he's a big play caliber type of player. Go back and watch his college film. I know, he was obviously hurt last year and but the one or two flashes we saw, if we can get that on a consistent basis, he's going to be a huge factor in fantasy football. But like I said, rostered in 53% of leagues, but if he's available, he needs to be a priority add. This is an explosive playmaker that absolutely needs to be rostered. He's a waiver wire must add approaching week 5. All right, next I want to talk about Jaden Reed of the Green Bay Packers, who's probably been added, dropped, moved around in a lot of leagues, but I kind of think that Jaden Reed is a player that should just be rostered in full PPR formats, especially if you play like in a double flex league. He's sitting at 38% rostered at the moment. And, he got dropped in a lot of leagues with the news of Christian Watson returning. And I understand that Christian Watson was on a snap count last week, but Jaden Reed still had 5 targets, 3 receptions, and 55 receiving yards, 10.5 fantasy points in full PPR. And, he gets Las Vegas in week 5. It's a good matchup. The Packers have a bye week in week 6. Then he gets the Denver Broncos, another good matchup for the Packers. This offense, I know they started off slow on Thursday night against the Lions, but they got it going. I mean, this offense is for real, and they are a throw-first offense behind quarterback Jordan Love, who has looked pretty dang good throughout the season as well. So, listen, Watson's going to get, more snaps, obviously not going to be on the snap count as the season goes on, which is going to affect Jaden Reed. But, with the news of Luke Musgrave being in concussion protocol, Jaden Reed is probably going to see more targets over the next week or so. And the bye week in week 6 kind of stinks, but ultimately, I like this Packers offense. I think Jaden Reed, like I said, got dropped in a lot of leagues. If you're hurting at the wide receiver position, he's absolutely worth adding moving into week 5. All right, last week we talked about CJ Stroud after his big performance against the Jacksonville Jaguars with 24.6 fantasy points and after having 25 fantasy points in week 2. And I told you guys there's a strong possibility that after week 4, Stroud is just a quarterback that's going to be hard to pull off the waiver wire if he has another good performance. And guess what? He had a great performance at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers, leading the Texans to a victory. 25.8 fantasy points, 306 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 16 yards on the ground. Another game where he threw the football 30 or more times, no interceptions. Let's face it, Stroud is the best rookie quarterback in the NFL so far on the season. Richardson brings that upside. I get it. Bryce Young, there's some work to be done there. But nonetheless, Stroud is ripping the football all over the place. The Texans have faith in him. He has confidence in himself. Nico Collins is balling out. I understand that Tank Dell's been a little bit volatile. He's still balling out. This offense has some juice to them. They're going to go out similar to the Cardinals like we talked about earlier, and they're going to try and win every football game. This is no longer a team that we can just sneeze at on a weekly basis. And CJ Stroud, we have to put some respect on his name. If you're hurting at the quarterback position, you need to roster him immediately. He is sitting at 55% rostered, but I just had to mention him again after another great performance. If you play in a double quarterback superflex league, he's probably already rostered, but if he's not, he's a very solid quarterback to go ahead and pick up. And I'm telling you guys right now, this is the final week that you're going to be able to just pull him off the waiver wire in a majority of leagues. So CJ Stroud, an absolute must add moving in to week 5. All right, time for another quarterback. We're going to talk about Joshua Dobbs, who's rostered in 9% of fantasy leagues at the moment, according to the Sleeper app. And hey, just talked about putting some respect on Stroud's name. We talked about the Cardinals earlier in the video. Let's put a little bit of respect on Josh Dobbs' name, who had 27.4 fantasy points against the San Francisco 49ers. Guys, that is the most fantasy points a quarterback has scored on the Niners all season long. Josh Dobbs, 265 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 48 yards on the ground. He now has 41 or more rushing yards in the last 3 games. A little bit of a steep matchup against Cincy in week 5, but they are at home. Then they get the Rams and Seattle, who are a bit volatile. Guys, especially if you play in a super flex or double quarterback league, you need to go and pick up Josh Dobbs. If you're struggling at quarterback in a single quarterback league, yeah, I like guys like Stroud more, but Dobbs is an option, and these Cardinals players are just nothing to sneeze at anymore. We have to put some respect on this Cardinals offense name. I mean, Josh Dobbs, week 2, 27 points. Week 3, 19 points. Week 4, 27 points. I get that week 1 was an absolute disaster, so maybe you're a little bit queasy. But at this point, we have 3 concrete weeks on the record. It doesn't look like Kyler Murray is going to come back anytime soon, and Why would the Cardinals want him to come back? They have sufficient quarterback play in Josh Dobbs. Let Kyler rest. Who knows what the future holds for the Cardinals, but hey, this is a team that has some fight underneath them. Josh Dobbs is leading the way for this offense. He's got playmakers around him. We just talked about Michael Wilson. Hollywood Brown looks great. Zach Ertz doesn't look like, he left last season with an injury. James Conner has been great this year. Josh Dobbs, simply put, if you need a quarterback, if you're in a double quarterback or super flex format, if you're in a dynasty league, go ahead and pick up Josh Dobbs approaching week 5. All right, last, let's finish with a tight end. And Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys had 14.7 fantasy points against New England in week 4. He now has had 4 or more targets in every game this season, but more importantly, at least 7 targets in 3 out of 4 games. We knew, looking at last year and the year before, Dak Prescott loves to target the tight end position, and Jake Ferguson is the tight end 1 for Dallas. He's a tight end 8 overall in fantasy at the moment, had 77 receiving yards last week in week 4. My worry to start the year was that he wasn't always making the most out of his targets, with just 2 receptions in week 1, then 3 in week 2, but 5 in week 3. Then he caught every single ball in week 4, 7 targets, 7 receptions. So we've seen the progression throughout the year. He's improved on that target share. Prescott loves to target the tight end. Like I just said, they get San Francisco in week 5, the Chargers in week 6. These are both away games, important games against tough opponents. These are going to be competitive game scripts. That's what we want in fantasy. Ferguson, with the volatility at the tight end position this season so far, he's simply a must-add approaching week 5 of the season. That'll do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy the content today, this is all we do here all year round, free fantasy football content. If you guys are into that, be sure to subscribe on the way out. But more importantly, please get in the comment section down below anything that you guys need: waiver wire advice, trade advice, roster reviews, start sits, anything pertaining to the 2023 fantasy football season. Let me know. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And with that, I will say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.